Okay, I think we're here, but I'm not yet sure. One, if you can hear the CD player, and two, if it's way too loud. Might be way too loud in general. I'm gonna check on YouTube, give it a minute or two, and then hop in. You can hear in the background the Song of My Returning by Phil Ochs. This is from the first CD of a collection that was made after his passing called Farewells and Fantasies. It's a beautiful song. All of his songs are beautiful. And the purpose of this live stream, even though I'm going to give it a minute, is to celebrate the life of Phil Ochs, a beautiful, really important member of our society and one of the truth tellers, one of the members of that lineage of humans who do everything they can in their life, short or long that it might be, to spread a message of love and participate through their art and their voice. He's a very inspiring American and someone that I look up to a lot. So today, April 9th, 2026, this is 50 years since Phil Ochs passed. He took his life on April 9th, 1976, at the age of 36. He was born in 1940, and he grew up like a lot of kids grow up, you know. Actually, kind of interestingly, he went to a military school in high school, played the clarinet. I played the trumpet as a middle schooler, but he was a child of Uncle Sam, a child of America, of North America, of the United States of America in the 40s. You know, he was 5 years old when World War II was finishing up, and he grew up to be one of the protagonists of the 60s. A singer-songwriter, a poet, a really talented, artist all around. And I had the pleasure of working, deeply with Phil Ochs' music and with his past, and a particular moment in his life when in the early 70s, after the 60s were beginning to fizzle out and transition, and some of that hope had been crushed a little bit in 1968, that Phil and a lot of the members of the Festival of Life in Chicago experienced. This is all, nitty gritty stuff, and I'm still going to go check YouTube and see if this is working. But summarizing, in 1971, Phil took a trip down to South America, and I took a lot of trips down to South America in my 20s and as a teenager as well. And I have a connection with South America and with Latin America and with our entire continent that is super important and defines a lot of what I consider, my identity as an American. And it's a beautiful thing. And this man right here, smiling, his name is a name that not enough people know. So this is for you, Phil, and for all of us to celebrate you. Happy birthday. I don't know if people say happy death day. That sounds so morbid. You're not dead, although you passed, and your body is no longer with us, and your voice remains on these recordings. That's how it is with all these artists. I have two CDs here. Woody Guthrie. Oh, excuse me. A Woody Guthrie CD. It says The Early Years. And I have a CD from a Chilean artist, Violeta Parra. Violeta is like the grandma of the new song, La Canción Nueva, in Chile. And Woody, he's like the grandpa of all these Greenwich Village folk singers, of which Phil was, one of the main people. There's a lot of women singing as well. One of my favorites is Buffy St. Marie, a native woman with incredible music. She has a song, The Universal Soldier, which we should check out. Everyone should check that song out. If I make my camera a little smaller here, and I turn down the CD player a little bit. Oops. Let's see if I can do that. I can reveal what's behind. And there's just a Wikipedia or a Google page of Phil. And then there's this funny thing over here, which I'll actually make bigger. Something I was just spitballing and typing a bunch of stuff on, kind of randomly, things that I thought maybe we could talk about today. It's strange that it hasn't updated. That's weird. Well, maybe I could stop and start, but I don't necessarily want to do that. So this monitor here, I'd expect the image to change, but it's not changing. So that's a shame, but that's okay. I don't really know how to fix that. Let me try one more time. If I remove it and add it, will that work? I'm going to try one time. Are you sure you wish to remove monitor? Yeah, I do. I'm going to double up on my face real quick. The song changed, and that's cool. But this is There But For Fortune, another banger. And it's 10:13, so at 10:15, maybe I can kind of jump into the program. But what I need to do is try to add this here. Video capture device, add existing, no, cancel. Okay, give me 1 minute, friends. Mac OS screen capture. Let's try one more time. Okay, well, there we go. Now we updated that, and this looks better. So, yeah, here's this funny thing, which is a bunch of words, and now we can see the screen changing. That's all I was trying to get, so we're good. You see humanity in the middle. Yes, indeed. This is all about humanity, but it's also about life. And humanity is in the middle of art and truth and search and meaning. And I think I was going upwards towards bigger scale, right? Zooming out. Truth and love and life and light. I could add light here. These feel like synonymous in a way, right? And above life, including life, part of every bit of everything. Here we are on this earth. You know, it's not just humanity. We're on this biosphere and we're part of it all. And the word stars is at the top. A long time ago, I had this, not idea, but, you know, I kind of attributed this idea to Phil, that there are stars that burn very brightly and burn out quickly because of how brightly they burn. I mentioned that Phil, you know, passed in his mid-30s. He took his own life. He was living in a bunch of pressure, and he was going through a lot and suffering and feeling so much. And I think Phil, in a personal interpretation, really linked his soul to the soul of America. And when it suffered, or when he felt that things were not shifting in the direction and the light was fading, that really affected Phil and compounded with so many facets of his own life, his personal life, his professional life, and also his participation, which is the most important, you know, part of his life, in the movement with a capital M. And so Phil's story is really, really, really important. But he was a star, and he burned so bright. And we only see the light of those stars when we look up at the sky as they're shining and twinkling at us after they've burned. Often, right, the stars have passed or the stars have burned out and we're seeing their light. And so there's this idea that as long as we look and listen, the light will shine. And even we're like prisms, right, our ears. And so for me, with Phil, he's like the most important sort of figure for me personally. He's one of those people who I see like a brother, right? And he took his role very seriously. He earned his place. This means so much. He held himself to a high standard, which is, you know, hard also, because it's not always easy to live up to those high standards, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And he was a star that burned very bright. So the reason I came to stars, and I kind of felt like I needed to talk about stars, was because today I was reading this book, which a lot of you might have read, A Wrinkle in Time. And there's a chapter in there that I thought was really important to read. Now I feel like there's just so much that I'd want to say. But here is this also word salad of role and responsibility. And you can't see the word responsibility, but it's over here. And I I should really get a picture of Phil up above. It would be much appropriate. There's so many good ones. So many good ones. Um, but the community and the conversation and the connection between, you know, us listeners, me, myself, and this guy, Phil Ochs. And I thought we could look at some of his albums, some of his books that are about Phil, books and pieces that he wrote. And Chavin is a word here, which is a place in Peru. And that has everything to do with where I first came to know this man, Phil Ochs. And maybe tonight will be brief, but I will foreshadow that I want to, enter into a story about this artist that for me encapsulates so much. And it's so damn interesting, but it's also a lot, which is part of the reason why I got so overwhelmed when I was studying Phil and getting to know the history around him. But tonight, is about celebrating a life of an important person and acknowledging and maybe honoring death and martyrdom as well. These words, anti-war, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, and America y America, where we have this tilde on top of the E. These are important ideas for me when I think about this guy. But this guy, I really wish I could just keep the camera right here. This is an awesome book which details all of his songs. Why do I have so much of his stuff, Well, it's because he's a G and he's important. And right now, we're living in a world where everything Phil's saying about was going on in his time and had been going on in some cases for decades. He was living through the Vietnam War. But the times we're living in, so much has changed, and yet so much remains the same, or has remained the same. And I did write some things which at this point I'm going to glance at, but it was just like tappings on the phone. But this thing called the status quo. But also, hold on, pause. I don't know how loud the CD player is behind me, but it's going to stay on because it's Phil's voice. He's now singing a musical version of an Edgar Allan Poe poem, which no one had really made a song before. And Phil made it into a song called The Bells. And lyrically, it's a beautiful song. Be nice to actually pull that up, but I don't even know how to work this computer, although I can try. I'm going to pull this up here. The Song of My Returning, look at that. Here we have this. Now, this is helpful because if I can just get this one little tab going here, I can put this above my head or over here on the left because we can also minimize this. Humanite. I had some blue stuff on there, but we're going to leave that. Here we go. Let's get a good photo of you, Phil. Felipe. Look how young Phil was in this one right here. Probably 1964, 1965. That looks like. Oh, look at this good one. Little older. Smiling. Fist triumphant. And here he is at a really particular. Oh, my camera's in the wrong spot. Hold on. Here he is at a particular moment in this gold lame suit, looking like Elvis. Phil Ochs dreamed of being Elvis Presley and Che Guevara. And he really wanted to bring up the critical consciousness of the average Joe in America. Phil was just an average Joe, but he was a very special man. He wasn't just an average Joe. We all are average Joes. It's all about, embracing the chaos of learning, and unlearning. And it's not about intellectuality. It's intellectualism or elite, ideas that are hard to understand or whatever the heck. No. Phil was and advocated for you, the common man and woman. And anyways. Okay, so this word, status quo, the way things are right now. And the way we know everything we know as, we'll just say people, but we could say as Americans, right? Phil questioned this status quo. he came to be very politicized in his college years, mainly, the early college years. He had a roommate who was really important, and he bet on the election of Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy, for his first guitar. And this roommate, his friend, Jim Glover, but I gotta say, I'm gonna maybe mistake a lot of names. It's been a long time since I've dug into my research, and this date's been so important. It's been in my head for a couple of years. I've known that this day, every year it passes April 9th, but this year it's 50 years since 1976, and that feels very significant. Phil, anywho, the thing I was talking about was that he kind of became a little bit politicized, and then a lot bit politicized in his college years, and he would eat dinners at his friend's house, and his friend's father, Mr. Glover, was very involved in the labor unions and was perhaps a labor union leader, but would talk about the labor union and talk about the interests of the working class, and really helped Phil understand class consciousness a little bit better. And Phil would write in the newspaper in college. He was very, very productive. He started making his own music, but especially making, covers, playing Woody Guthrie probably, but Pete Seeger songs, and the Almanac Singers. And Phil dove into it. He just dove all in with his whole soul and his musical self, his journalistic self. And this would all contribute. Those threads would weave together into his topical songwriting, where his music, especially on his first couple albums and in his live shows and always at his performances, was topical. It was very critical about what was going on. That's why we can listen to it today, and so many of the songs are so funny and also so biting. Some of them are so humorous because they're true, and it's also sometimes funny because it's not funny, but he's pointing it out in a way that, really makes you laugh, and then you go home and you think about it more and you say, wait, that's some deep stuff right there. So, a lot of great pictures, a lot of great moments. Look at this one, smoking from the pipe. And, drinking beer. Phil, this looks definitely later. That was that performance, but Phil suffered with alcoholism. And in the research that I did on Phil, especially in that year, 1971, when he travels, this is actually a picture from around that time, I'm pretty sure, with this cigar in his mouth. But I could be wrong about that also. But giving up on America, look at this. Phil Ochs talks about giving up on America. This was late 60s, early 70s, and this is through the broadside. The broadside is really important as well, but can't go down every single rabbit hole right now. Although I can. It's my live streaming. And Phil is my favorite, so this is cool to see, though. Here you have Phil Ochs talks about, and this is through broadside. And we can talk more about the broadside, but I really do have to stay a little bit focused. During that time, 1971, Chile, ¿por qué hablé eso? Why did I say that? The research I was doing, he was struggling with his alcoholism during that time. He was giving up on America. And so why did he go down to Chile? Porque in Chile, he was feeling a lot of life, and he was very inspired by the Popular Unity political party and the president who was elected democratically, President Allende, Salvador Allende. And Phil also got to meet a lot of important poets and singer-songwriters in Chile. So he sort of fused into the effervescent political life of Santiago and even surrounding areas in Chile. He got to sing to copper miners and listen to political speeches in the streets. And he got to go to the birthday party of my favorite anti-poet, which was the poet Nicanor Parra. He's my favorite poet of South America. Phil, oh, by the way, Violeta, yes, Violeta Parra, that's Nicanor's sister, so it's very cool. Phil was in that world in Chile in 1971. After he's given up on America, he's feeling like America's movement, this anti-war, anti-Vietnam War, and coming out of the civil rights movement, he's feeling so so alive. I'm not going to repeat that same adjective. And boom, we got Nixon and LBJ, and we got more of the same. And it's big bad news for Phil and all the compatriots of the movement. But some take it and keep moving. And Phil gets really, really, really down on the fact that everything he felt like they were working for was going to hell, or shinola, hell in a handbasket. So what happens? He goes to Chile, and there he gets really inspired. And then 2 years later, that movement is totally, totally, totally overthrown through the cooperation and help of the CIA and the right-wing military leader Augusto Pinochet and other, members of the Chilean military on the right. They overthrow Salvador Allende. There's tanks on the streets. There's bombs dropping on the Palacio de la Moneda, in which the president is transmitting his last radio message. This is happening, and Phil, 2 years ago, was hanging out with these people. He was there. He was so happy that they were so alive, and he was really bummed that North America was taking a route, that the United States was taking a route that was, what he considered like the death of the social movements, sort of what he considered sort of the progress towards more, not just like stopping at the status quo and saying everything's great now. Okay, civil rights movements. Okay, yeah, black people, they got what they needed now, right? Like everything's fine, right? We can just keep trucking down the road of capitalist development and just do America, baby. And we can keep, we don't have to learn our lessons from the Vietnam War, for example. So, no, that wasn't all good for Phil. He goes down to Chile, he's super inspired, and then that movement is bombarded, and Salvador Allende dies. He's dead. Victor Jara, the Phil Ochs of Chile, he is a legend. He is murdered by soldiers in the stadium in front of other young Chileans who are also corralled into the stadium. Victor Jara dies a tragic death. Phil is very, very upset by this. This is 1973. In 1974, Phil organizes a benefit concert for the memory of Victor Jara and his wife, Joan Jara, who lives on and survives her husband, Victor. And Salvador Allende, who also passes, is, part of that 1974 benefit. For Phil, it was such a big deal. It was a big main event of his late life, and he put a lot of effort into it. He invited Bob Dylan. It was important to him that Bob was there. He just really, really cared about the world and about humanity and about his brothers and sisters, especially those who he saw were progressing the cause for life, for justice, for democracy at the end of the day. And the average, men and women, the average people, all of us who just make the world go round, we're all in this thing together. Phil made music which had the potential, and still does, to politicize its listener. This was a big reason he wasn't on the radio a lot, and contribute, to the raising up of the critical consciousness, the critical thinking, that eye that doesn't just take it for what it is, or that ear that, hears a little more closely. It's like a fish swimming in water that doesn't know that it's swimming in water. That can be how it is to grow up in a society. And Phil, his target, I think, was the average person, but the collective of American people, the collective consciousness of American people. And I think he fretted about this a lot and worried about this. And he was, like I said earlier, an average, a kid of America, a child of Uncle Sam. But he grew very hyper aware of Uncle Sam's misadventures, so to speak, and his own country's dark side, and the ongoing struggles of its often imperialist, the ongoing struggles due to its imperialist activities, and also domestic injustice too. So he became very aware of the violent history and the ongoing violence, and he was living through this stuff. And he participated during this time of civil rights in the Vietnam War, and a lot more throughout this time of many things. But this was just like the movement. It was a capital M. It's something that's hard to imagine, but I want to shout out everybody that's out in DC right now. There is an anti-war movement in the United States, but it's small, and it's smaller than it was, and it's small relative, I think, to the size of the problem we're facing. And I think it's overwhelming to think about that. And sometimes that overwhelming nature of the problem is actually paralyzing, and that's a problem too. And I definitely know about that. I can suffer from that too. So no pity party. No, we ain't doing that. But time to get moving. So if today is rough, and if this live stream is just on, and it's okay. Look at that. I need to go grab a cigar. It's all good. This is April 9th. It's Phil's day. My voice doesn't even matter. Listen to this shit. And the plains, walk through the sun and walk through the rain. Here is a land full of power and glory. This is America. Cannot recall. Oh, her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Glory shall rest on us all. Y'all, this is the song. Tell me who could ask for more. Here is a land full of power and glory. Oh, her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Alright, check it out. Only as free as a padlocked prison door. Only as strong as our love for this land. Only as tall as we stand. Here is a land. This is the anthem, okay? This is the anthem. Glory on us all. Oh, shit. Where's the other one? Walk through the rain. So, is this man a patriot? Is this man a traitor? Beautiful. Strength of... Damn, I need to zoom out. Hey, shout out this blog, too. There's so many good blogs, so many people. I mean, there is a handful of people who have made incredible tributes to Phil. And this one, celebrating Phil Ochs, it's a little older, and it's so good. So here you have the lyrics, and you also have a nice poster. This was a promo poster. Look at that. Here's the state of Richard Nixon. That was a really good song, too. I'm turning this down. That also brings me to another point. There's a lot of Phil Ochs lovers that wish he was around to sing about here's the state of Donald Trump, but we can make those songs, and it's not just about Trump, obviously. I'm just saying, like, they or here's the state of Joe Biden, right? You could put any president's name in there. And the thing is, he already did it. I wish in a way he was here too, but I don't in another way, because I love him, and I think he did his job, and he lived damn well. Celebrate that. Phil Ochs, celebrating you. Okay, well, whatever I did to all the tabs, I don't even know, but it's okay. I had them all up, and they all disappeared. So I'm just gonna not worry about that. But I do. Can I just... Oh, what did I do? Did I hide it again? Oh, I double... I'm so bad at this whole thing. Two things are going on. But I had the sickest image. Like, where did it go? Either way, it's all good. Let's get another one up. Look at that. Tom Paxton, love you. Now, there's a million things. There's a million things that I could say, and I guess that's a problem. You do have to prepare. But I just want to say it's kind of fun just to look around at these images And when life throws you curveballs, you take them. Huh. Can I do history? How do I get to history? There it is. Let's do earlier today. Mm, 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 mm. Phil Ochs. Here's a playlist. Okay, I'm going to pull this up real quick. This is a YouTube playlist with all kinds of videos, right? Here's the one we were just listening to or looking at. Oh, this is something I want to talk about tonight. Okay, this whole thing has not been in sections. Obviously, I've just been yapping. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that Phil spoke about and sang about people that he loved, and people that inspired him and their passing. He spoke about it in such a loving way and in a powerful way. What I'm trying to say is Phil took care to write and sing very beautifully about people that had passed, including people like the president, JFK, but also people like Bruce Lee, and also people like Medgar Evers, who were killed in the South. Black man at that point. He was a young man. Medgar Evers. And Phil talked about not just named people that were murdered or that died, but he also talked about, the nameless that has been, that has passed, right? In part of due to the cause, as part of the cause, or for the cause is what I'm trying to say. And there's like a book here that's the writings of Phil Ochs, not just his songs, but actual things from his college years. I'm going to grab it real quick. Look at my head. This camera follows me around, which is kind of annoying. But at this point, I don't care. Here it is. I'm going to say it now. It's an edited version of writings of Phil Ochs. And there's a really nice bit in here. Oh, let me see if I can do this. This is important. Can I just... I know what to do. Don't even trip. Watch this. Check this out. This is cool. I'm going to change the camera. Check it out. Bang, bang. Ooh, I did it. Here's a spindrift, if you're curious. Here we go. Now, I got to be careful with this one. This one here. Look at that. $1.95. Damn. Ain't that something? Let's get this out of here. Wow. Look at that. This thing is beautiful. Okay, anyways, why is it beautiful? Because this is early on. This is $1.95. This is from 64, I want to say. Oh, Miss Linda. Linda, if this is your book, thank you for taking such good care of it. Yes, indeed. Copyright 1964 by Appleseed Music. Check it out. And here we have a lot of his early songs. Everything that would have been on his first album is in this book. Now, that includes The Power and Glory, what we just heard. And it includes the sheet music and the lyrics. This is beautiful. Here's one example, Bound for Glory, of a song in which Phil writes about someone else, but he ends up writing, in a sense, in my opinion, about himself. This is a song he wrote about this man right here, Woody Guthrie. And it's called Bound for Glory. And even though in the background I'm hearing links on the chain, if you can hear it from the CD player, you're hearing it too. If not, no worries. This song, Bound for Glory, is also bound in my mind, and it's easy to remember how it sounds. I'm not going to suffer you the experience of me singing it right now. I am going to zoom in, though. All right. Easy. He wrote and he sang and he rode upon the rails, and he got on board when the sailors had to sail. He said all the words that needed to be said. He fed all the hungry souls that needed to be fed. And this is about Woody Guthrie. And then the chorus, and now he's bound for glory. Now he's bound for a glory all his own or of his own. Both kind of sound good. He sang in our streets and he sang in our halls. That's Phil too. And he was always there when the unions gave a call. He did all the jobs that needed to be done. And he always stood his ground when the smaller men would run. And now he's bound for glory of his own. So Phil would write these beautiful pieces, sometimes music, other times not music. Let's look at one that's not music. That's in this book right here. I just need to keep up this thing, keep this zoom out a bit. So Phil actually wrote about the passing of Bruce Lee. You can find this online. It's pretty cool. Can I find it here? It's got a beautiful title. Requiem for a Dragon Departed. Here it is. The dragon is Bruce Lee. Oh God, Medgar Evers is in the background right now. Everybody that's passed that Phil sang for or wrote for. Requiem for a Dragon Departed. So here you have Phil's dedication to Bruce Lee. It's really wonderful. And then the photos are actually in the middle. Here's the photo. That's the thumbnail for this image. Look at these beautiful pics. Bruce Lee had 2 funerals. Damn. Look at that ending. Alright. We gotta check out this last paragraph here. Maybe Bruce Lee was killed by some crazy person or some rival business faction. Maybe he wasn't meant to be cast as a James Bond figure, serving the interests of Interpol. Maybe he lived more intensely than any human being can live. Or maybe he died for the same reason that James Dean died. They had taken too much of the fire, and the gods were jealous. That shit is fire. Now, I should have read the preceding paragraph, but maybe he had taken too much of the fire. I think that's not just a maybe. Phil took the fire too. Okay, that's Requiem for a Dragon Departed, one of the many writings of Phil. We could do the songs of Phil. We could do the writings of Phil. We could do other people's writings about Phil. We could look at the 2 biographers right here, Michael Schumacher and Mark Elliott. Great books. You guys rock. You guys killed it. Great biographies. So much dedication put into those. They're both well done. Their chapters on Chile is what tipped me to the fact that Phil spent that time in Chile, in South America. Not just Chile, by the way. And so I owe it to them and to everybody who loved Phil and loves Phil and wrote about Phil and lived with Phil and sang with him and marched with him and laughed and loved and all the good things. You know, I do that nowadays, but I discovered Phil in 2018. In 2018, I was on a trip in Peru, high in the mountains, in Chavín de Huántar. And, oh my gosh, wait, espera. This is important. Oh, shit. Oh, man, I can't even. I don't know how to wear this hat. I don't need a monitor. What do I need a monitor for? That doesn't matter. These headphones, it doesn't matter. You can hear. Okay, this hat is important because I discovered Phil in Chavin, in a highland town in Peru, and it was 2018, and it was July 4th. It was our nation's birthday. And instead of playing the Star Spangled Banner, the lead archaeologist of this wonderful, 2-month archaeological dig, who was and continued to be for some time the lead archaeologist of the Chavin de Huántar project, Dr. John Rick, he pulled out a, dusty, hardly tuned old guitar, and at dinner on July 4th, 2018, John Rick played a beautiful rendition of a song that was so cool, so American, so clearly influenced by some of those songs, from California to whatever we say. I can't even remember right now. But Phil's song was influenced, but I could tell it was like a different anthem. And I could hear the verses that were clearly pro people, pro life, pro light. They were aware, they were conscious. He said, "You're only as free as a padlocked prison door, only as tall as you stand, and only as strong as our love for this land," and all this good stuff. So I asked John after this wonderful performance at dinner, I asked him, "What was that song you played? And who were those, who wrote that? What were those lyrics? Like, who did that? What was that? That was cool." And he told me, it's this guy. He didn't make a big deal of it, but he said it was this guy, Phil Ochs, and he told me, and I wrote it down on my phone or on the journal I had in my pocket. I didn't look or listen to Phil Ochs, look him up for many weeks at least. I don't know if it was even during that trip. I think it wasn't until I got home months later. But I eventually looked him up, and I saw that song, Power and Glory, or The Power and Glory, or The Power and the Glory. It's America. It's American. It's real. It's life. And anyways, I was super inspired by that, obviously. But that was 2018. And so that stayed kind of dormant. And I listened to more of Phil. And I kind of had a sense that Phil was very special. But I also noticed, because I was very much, it wasn't just Peru where I got this great hat, in Chavin. And I traded a trowel for it from one of the wonderful men in Chavin, one of the obreros, the workers, who was so talented. They all are brave, strong, and very skilled and humble. Very, very incredible men. And he gave me this hat, and that was really special. It's like my most prized possession, truly. And why did I notice the Phil connection to Latin America? Maybe because I kind of had my own, It was getting to know the Spanish language and traveling a little bit, but also just traveling in my own home state of Georgia and the South, and in the States in general, where there was a lot of Spanish to be spoken and a lot of people speaking Spanish around me. And I got to know the world beyond the United States. That was also America. This book here is by a great historian, Greg Grandin, I think. Greg Grandin. And it's America, and it's kind of a wonderful historical exploration of this whole idea and these two Americas. One that is, it's not like I am not proud of being American, or that like I have a problem with North America. Well, I do. I got a bone to pick, right, with Uncle Sam. But it's about that we have to take it back into our hands, what it means to be a democracy, what freedom is about. That's what it's about. Oops, excuse me. I keep bumping this thing. And the collective that the history and the ongoing, struggles in Latin America, the collective is the focus, and that collective and the idea of the collective, we have a lot to learn from that, and it has a lot to teach us. So Phil went south and learned a lot from that, and he's brave for that. He's a badass for that, And what I was saying, wherever I was, 1971, yada yada, that connection I also noticed that Phil had in a lot of his music with Latin America and the revolutionary movements in Latin America. That was really apparent to me. So I connected with him, and I sat on that for a couple years, from 2018 to 2020, and then I continued to study again because COVID happened. So it was a weird thing, but COVID happened. And then I went back to school for 2 years. And in that time, I dove into Phil's time in Chile. And I went to the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa. And I did some archival research. And I read all about Phil's trip in Santiago and also other countries and cities too. The end of his trip was especially interesting. And I needed to organize all that and share it. But it was so inspiring and interesting. It's hard to even begin to summarize. But what I can say is it made me smile, and it glued me to the page, so to speak. And there was some real incredible moments, and also just mundane stuff that is so fascinating because of the connection I feel to this man who, whether or not I'm doing it any justice, is certainly better with his words than I am, but is certainly, that's not what it's about, me or my rambling, but certainly is worth listening to, for real. So if you heard anything today, you might have just heard me rambling. Sorry. What I can tell you is Phil Ochs is inspiring, and his story is very inspiring. And I need to figure out a way to talk about his story and write about his story. It's probably in the writing. You got to script it, right? You got to figure out a way to do that. But today, on April 9th, it's coming on 11 p.m. where I live, Central Time. And I've been thinking about this day a long time. It's Phil's day, and tomorrow's my birthday. So that's important to me. It's a big deal. But I want to dedicate a lot of this year to not just sitting on all this stuff I have. If you could see all around me, it's just these books by my side, books on the table. And then I finally went and dug up a journal of mine, which is just full of thoughts like that don't need to necessarily be shared, right? But they could be organized, and I thought they were important because of the same reason that it's important to tell people you know you love them and tell people you don't know good afternoon. For the same reason it's important to tell the truth and make art and love and make mistakes. It's just we got to live fully. And I got to find a way to share all this stuff because it's definitely among the most important things that I've had the pleasure of encountering in my lifetime. And Phil's voice is not on an island or a cappella. I mean, it's not just accompanied with his acoustic guitar. What I'm saying is Phil Ochs, his voice is in perfect and beautiful, fascinating harmony with so many other incredible creative humans and soldiers of the light, warriors of the light, people who fought very hard. And if I could wrap up in a sense, I want to look at these words from A Wrinkle in Time. Oh God, that camera thing's so annoying. Because these soldiers of the light, Mrs. Whatsit, she said, "We're not alone, you know, children. All through the universe, it's being fought. All through the cosmos. And but it's a grand and exciting battle. I know it's hard for you to understand about size, how there's very little difference in the size of the tiniest microbe and the greatest galaxy. You think about that, and maybe it won't seem strange to you that some of our very best fighters have come right from your own planet. And it's a little planet, dears, out on the edge of a little galaxy. You can be proud that it's done so well." "Who have our fighters been?" Calvin asked. "Oh, you must know them, dear," Mrs. Whatsit said. Mrs. Who's spectacles shone out at them triumphantly. "And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." "Jesus!" Charles Wallace said. "Why, of course, Jesus." "Of course," Mrs. Whatsit said. "Go on, Charles, love. There were others, all your great artists. They've been lights for us to see by." "Leonardo da Vinci?" Calvin suggested tentatively. And Michelangelo? And Shakespeare, Charles Wallace called out. And Bach, and Pasteur, and Madame Curie, and Einstein. Now Calvin's voice rang with confidence. And Schweitzer, and Gandhi, and Buddha, and Beethoven, and Rembrandt, and St. Francis. Now you, Meg, Mrs. Whatsit ordered. Oh, Euclid, I suppose. Meg was in such an agony of impatience that her voice grated irritably. And Copernicus. What about Father? Please, what about Father? We are going to your father, Mrs. Witch said. But where is he? On a planet that has given in, so you must prepare to be very strong. All traces of cheer had left the happy medium's face. Have we given in? Has our planet given in? She sat holding the great ball, looking down at the shadowed earth, and a slow tear coursed down her cheek. I can't stand it any longer, she sobbed. Watch now, children. Watch. This is chapter 6, The Happy Medium. This is A Wrinkle in Time. And this is important because, listen, the light. Again they found their eyes on the crystal ball. The earth, with its fearful covering of dark shadow, swam out of view, and they moved rapidly through the Milky Way. And there was the thing again. Watch, the medium told them. The darkness seemed to seethe and writhe. Was this meant to comfort them? Suddenly, there was a great burst of light through the darkness. The light spread out, and where it touched the darkness disappeared. The light spread until the patch of dark thing had vanished, and there was only a gentle shining, and through the shining came the stars, clear and pure. Then, slowly, the shining dwindled until it, too, was gone, and there was nothing but stars and starlight. No shadows, no fear, only the stars and the clear darkness of space, quite different from the fearful darkness of the thing. You see, the medium cried, smiling happily. It can be overcome. It is being overcome all the time. Mrs. Whatsit sighed, a sigh so sad that Meg wanted to put her arms around her and comfort her. Tell us exactly what happened, then, please, Charles Wallace said in a small voice. Okay, so, all right, these kids, they've gone through some crazy stuff, all right? But they just saw the dark thing, darkness, evil, being sucked up by light. And they don't know what happened, but they're about it. They like it. They like it because the dark thing is bad, you know. It's really overwhelming for them. And they see this thing getting sucked up by some light. And they're like, what's going on? So, Charles wants to know. Tell us exactly what happened then, please, Charles Wallace said in a small voice. It was a star, Mrs. Whatsit said sadly. A star giving up its life in battle with the thing. It won. Oh yes, my children. It won. But it lost its life in the winning. All right. Phil Ochs, live in peace. Sing, rest in peace, but don't rest too much, man. We need you more than ever. The war is over. The war is not over. but Phil declared it to be. He wanted it to be so bad. And he is damn right in saying that. We need to end this perpetual war. The war is over. That's today. It's the war is over day. It's Phil Ochs Day. It's April 9th. Rest in peace, brother. You are a light, a star. You shine bright. I got work to do, that's for sure. I want to share so much more about Phil Ochs, but I'll try to do so in a orderly fashion. I'm going to go do my homework. And just make sure before I end this that there was a lot to look at, but the excerpt from the book was good. And I talked a little about how I met Phil, which is great. I didn't talk a lot about Phil in Chile, but just enough. He was really moved by the coup d'etat, the military golpe, the coup that happened in 73. And that was a big, big, big blow to Phil and his psyche and his world and his happiness, too, in his late life. So we mourn, but we also celebrate the people today who stand in that legacy. And there's a lot of them. Oh, and also the truth tellers and the light. There's a lot of truth tellers that you can find, but I guess in some sense you got to be kind of careful. I have my YouTube here. I think nowadays it'd be great to listen to Justin at the Anti-Empire Project. Here you have war updates and situation reports from ongoing conflicts and ongoing military actions in West Asia, in the Middle East. Here you have Sudan war, Iran war, SITREP. So this is the Anti-Empire Project, Justin Podur. I don't know how to say his last name perfectly, but he's really good, and he stays up late at night to say it like it is. God bless him. You also have the Gray Zone, and the Gray Zone is really important. The man Max Blumenthal is the founder, so you could look up his name, or you could just go to thegrayzone.com or the YouTube. Very important. Very, very, very important. And we owe the Gray Zone so much in recent years. No, what else can we look at? There's all my notes, but that's okay. It's nothing crazy, but I also want you to know about Judge Knapp. Judge Knapp, Judging Freedom. This is important too because Judge Knapp brings on a lot of guests on a daily basis. There's Max, here's Larry Johnson, and Pepe Escobar. So military and professors and ex-CIA sometimes. He's got guests that are consistent, but very important. Judge Knapp, good job. He does a good job. 30-minute sessions, 30-minute segments. Bam, bam, bam. You know what to expect. And also, it just helps you stay informed. Y'all probably know a lot of other good ways, too. And you probably have your own sources. But those are just some things that I like to stay aware of. Because the truth tellers, Phil belongs to that class of humans. And I love him for that. But also because I think he's one of the greatest poets. And here's Chico Science. Phil and Chico Science. If my damn head would stop getting followed. In between me and my finger is Chico Science. And he's from Pernambuco, Brazil. From Recife. And he and Phil are kindred spirits as well. Chico also lost his life. But he died in a car accident in his early 30s. And that was another tragedy. There is so much. Like I said, I got my homework. But I'm going to stop this live stream and say, long live Phil Ochs. This was important for me to get that off my chest, regardless of 0 or 2 or 20 people. I almost feel bad if you had to watch the whole thing, but not if you got through some important moments. I could have just looked at lyrics. That would have been like maybe more service to Phil, just like dissecting some lyrics. But that's the type of thing you write a video essay for. Right now, YouTube's not my therapist, but I needed y'all to know this guy is important to me. I want you to know about him. And More than that, I want to tell you about him. Like, I do want to tell you in a importantly to say this, important to say, an informed way that's organized. Of course, you don't have all day to just sit here and listen to a live stream, but you do have time maybe for a podcast. Maybe you got time for some nice video essays. Maybe you got time to read an essay. I don't know. I'm sure that we can figure it out. And it's good to do so together. Oh, man. The rabbit hole. Back in it. This last song on our way out. I ain't marching anymore. God bless our freaking troops who wish they weren't getting deployed. Those who can leave or know how to figure out a way to get out of there. I know it's not that simple, but also, god dang, nobody deserves to get sent over there anywhere, and nobody deserves to have to do those things that they send you over to do. That's damn true. And killing your share of Indians or Arabs is not a life meaningfully lived, and it ain't worth shit. It ain't good for nothing. I ain't marching anymore. It's always the old to lead us to the wars. It's always the young to fall. Now look at all we've won with the saber and the gun. Tell me, is it worth it all? Okay, we got the music. I don't know if you can hear it. It's behind me. Fought in the bloody Civil War. Yes, I even killed my brothers and so many others. This song was a burn your draft card to this song type song in Vietnam era. Here we're in World War II. Shit, this is World War I. Sorry. Damn. Tell me, is it worth it all? It's crazy. Pretty crazy, huh? God. We just gotta change the lyrics. And Jesus. Just put Hegseth in here. But I ain't a marching anymore. The problem is, we don't even need ground troops. It's not even about that. It's just Israel can just do what it wants, and it's not even about am I marching. We need to tell the whole damn world we ain't marching no more. Love. It's about love, man. For real. It's so simple. It's about love. Alright, it's all love. Phil, much love. Everybody, much love. Viva. Viva el rey de la canción protesta, Phil Ochs. Mucho más que eso también. Comandante Che Guevara. Okay. Hasta luego. Thank you.